don't need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
Next question today comes from Eric. Eric's writing all the way from New Jersey. Eric, I can practically see your house from my storefront. All right, you say, "Hi Betsy, I'm a new listener to the show, but I've already found your insight to be very helpful when thinking about how to design my new home. I was hoping you could give me advice about what I can do with the dated fake wood paneling wall currently found in my living room. I'm planning on removing the carpeting in this room and showcasing the hardwood floor underneath, but I cannot stand to look at that fake wood paneling on the wall. Can this paneling be painted or wallpapered? How would you recommend doing that? Also, as this room has a fireplace and television hookups on opposite walls, how would you tackle the room's arrangement to ensure optimum viewing of both? I appreciate any help you can provide. Thank you so much for your time, Eric." Well, Eric, yes, there is much you can do to cover wood paneling. There are, 4 ideas that come to mind to fix wood paneling. The first is that you can paint it, right? You do need to prep the wall and you do need to, follow some very specific steps to make sure that it's ready to hold paint. But that is the easiest way to go about reimagining wood paneling. There's another fun thing that you could do that's not very expensive, even though it is more labor intensive. And it's called adhering a liner. So it's a wall liner to the wall. And it's essentially a very thick wallpaper that you would then put on the paneling that would take away any look of the paneling. You'd lose all the grooves, all the texture, and it would make it look very much like drywall. Now, this is again a process. And personally, I would hire a professional for this because not only do you have to clean the wall with a specific cleaner, which you'll probably have to do when you paint as well, but you have to prep the wall with a specific type of sealer. And then you have to put on the liner, which is much like adhering wallpaper, except this liner has no intrinsic texture or pattern. So that's another way to go about it. Now, a cool and imaginative way to embrace the wood paneling while also using the liner is to create a type of wainscoting. So if you're familiar with that wainscoting look, which has sort of those planks at the bottom and then a chair rail that goes around the middle, that could be pretty cool. So you're only doing the liner a certain way from the ceiling, maybe to 3 feet between 3 and 4 feet before the floor, right? Then you install a piece of molding. You paint the molding as well as the paneling that you've left below the molding a white like the trim. And then you've got that smooth liner above the chair molding and you paint that the same color as the walls, right? So that's a very creative way to reimagine this wood paneling in a contemporary way. Because right now, with the farmhouse style being so hot, everybody is loving wainscoting, beadboard. So that kind of paneled look at the bottom, as long as it's treated in a fresh, trim-like way, is going to be very compelling and may even enhance resale. In your case, I'm not really too excited about you doing that because this wood paneling only appears to be on one wall in the room. Because it's only on one wall, I think you need to make this wall look like the others. So you could do that wall liner. And the other thing you can do, as you mentioned, is you can wallpaper over this, but you'll still have to do that wall liner application underneath because with normal wallpaper, you're going to be seeing those grooves and that's going to be unsightly. The paper is not going to stick well. So in my estimation, unless you are very, very handy, I would be hiring someone for all 4 of my ideas, whether you choose to wallpaper, wainscot, paint, or use a wall liner all over. Those are sort of my suggestions. Now, you did also ask me where to put this TV. And the problem is that the room where the fireplace is, that sort of area by the fireplace, is pretty shallow. So putting any sort of sofa or seating directly opposite the fireplace is really going to gum up the works because there's so many walkways adjacent to this fireplace that it's really in kind of a high traffic zone. That being said, opposite the fireplace, kind of kitty corner in the room, there's this beautiful, long, unbroken wall. And I'm always trying to put seating on beautiful, long, unbroken walls because that's where a sofa might fit best. However, you're quite limited here because you don't have very many usable walls. So the idea of accommodating a television is quite tricky because on either side of the fireplace, there's very little wall. Maybe there's 3 feet on the left-hand side, and maybe there's 2 feet on the right-hand side, neither of which is appropriately wide enough for a TV. And then if we're looking at the fireplace, it's all brick, but it has sort of this unusual mantle that is about 3/4 of the way up from the floor, meaning that there's not enough room for a TV above it, and there's certainly not enough room for a TV below it. So unless you can remove that mantle and have it just be a nice, clean, straight face, putting it above the mantle is not a solution either. Now, with a room such as this one that has very tricky, very limited options, you may have heard me say on my podcast that I don't give floor plan advice off the cuff because I like to do my due diligence and try every possible option. So I would ask that you do the same, weighing each possible option of what's actually available in the space, because based on the limited pictures I have here, and like I said, I don't have a picture of every angle, so I can't know all the options. But I do know that you're going to have to be very strategic in this space with so many openings, so few long unbroken walls, and so many sorts of indentations, nooks and crannies. This room, is not straightforward. And it will be a challenge for you to find that ultimate floor plan. And there's probably only one. So make sure you do your due diligence and try every possible option, because personally, I would be quite challenged by trying to fit both a TV and primary seating in this space. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy, who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller, who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.